Hey, what's going on, guys? JayzTwoCents here, and it's like another graphics card review. Every single week it seems like it's the summertime, guys. This tends to be like GPU month usually, especially every other year, because that's when we tend to get major launches, especially from NVIDIA and AMD. So today we're gonna be taking a look at one of two cards on the market that are featuring a custom design for the new Fury air-cooled cards, and this is the Sapphire Tri-X.
Dude.
What?
It's so small.
You really think so?
What does the wife think?
Well, she says it gets the job done.
Mine's not that small.
The Fractal Design Node 202. It's not about how big it is, but all about how you use it. It's pretty obvious to me that Sapphire took the approach of, let's just put the biggest freaking cooler we could fit on the world's tiniest card. That's the card. That's the cooler. It makes sense though, considering there is a lot of heat to tame in this thing. You're taking all of the heat of all the chips that would normally be spread around the PCB and stacking them on the exact same unit that the GPU core is on, therefore you're gonna have a lot more focused heat. Now this thing has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heat pipes. 7 copper heat pipes. Holy. But because they have chosen to hang the back of the cooler off of the card significantly, about 2/3 the length of the card, you are getting just over 12 inches of length, as Barnacle would say.
Ladies.
But it's not just about the length, it's also about the girth. And as you can see right there, it backs it up with girth. Okay, those jokes are out of the way, but because it is a Tri-X cooler, that means we have 1, 2, 3 fans. It's kind of funny how that works. You've got tons and tons and tons and tons of fins on this thing. Like I said, Sapphire took out all the stops when it came to keeping this thing cool. It's got a cutout on the back here behind the GPU so that you can get reduction of heat soak sitting behind the actual core itself, especially with all these transistors back here, or resistors. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like a 12-phase power delivery system on this thing. Wow. And because it takes so much power, you're gonna need 2 8-pin PCI Express power. Now on the back here, it also has the same load LEDs that have been present on the Fury X cards with the same dip switches that you can change them between red and blue and off. And I think you can even do purple in there. I didn't actually test that. My bad. Now this thing isn't just an air-cooled Fury X. We know the AMD would not have let the partners do that. So this is actually shaved down just a little bit. It's about 500 stream processors less at 3,584. But when it comes to the memory bandwidth, the memory bus, the memory speed, that stuff is all identical. Unfortunately, it's all still locked down even on the 15.7 catalyst drivers that are supposed to directly result or fix some of the complaints that people had about the Fury X, especially with the varying performances. So this thing was tested with 15.7, which was the newest, most recommended driver by AMD at the time. So with that said, let's go ahead and go through the benchmarks, and then we're gonna do a live test with GTA 5 because I wanted to talk about fan noise and I wanted to talk about coil whine. Those were the two things that bothered me the most about the Fury X, was massive coil whine and pump noise. Obviously there's no pump on here, but there are fans, so we wanna see how it's performing. So let's go ahead and look at the benchmarks, and then let's jump into the live test.
Transition.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're just going to do a little bit of GTA 5. We're going to listen for two things. We're going to listen for fan noise, and we are going to listen for coil whine. Unfortunately, there is still a little bit of coil whine on this card, more than I would have liked to have heard. I don't think it's as bad as the Fury X, but it's still definitely there. And maybe it just has something to do with the way that the board has to be built because of AMD's interposer design with the RAM stacked next to the GPU rather than being on the top of the GPU. I'm not really too sure. But I do think that the coil whine is something worth mentioning because it is still there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my mic, I'm going to clip it to one of the wires that's near the graphics card, and we'll just kind of take a listen as I do a little playthrough here of the beginning scene of GTA 5 where you're repoing the cars, and I'll let you guys listen for fan noise and coil whine. So right now we're sitting at the desktop here. The fans are completely silent. They're not turning at all because there's nothing going on. So go ahead and take a quick listen for a few seconds here, and this is going to be your audio baseline so that you know where the system audio is versus where the graphics card audio is. Alright, so here we are right now. We're in 1440p. Graphics card fans are still not even turning. That just shows you how silent optimized this card really is. I kind of make it a point to hit all the people I can. It's extra points in this game. Not really, but it is in my game. Oh, that's a really strong planter. But you gotta admit though, this thing is doing an amazing job at FPS. I mean, we're sitting here locked into the mid-70s at 1440p. So there's the difference of no coil whine versus coil whine. We'll go back and forth real quick. So here's no coil whine. And there's the coil whine. No coil whine. Coil whine. But you have to admit though, the fans were something you never heard. The fans didn't really turn up at all. Alright, well the game really didn't like me tabbing back and forth, so it restarted on me. Alright, so what do I think about the card? Well, I think that's kind of a loaded question, honestly. The card fits in a spot where there's really no occupation right now. $550 is kind of a weird price point for graphics cards because it always seemed to have been, at least on Nvidia's side, you know, you'd have your $300 card, $500 card, $650 card, and then $1,000. And I think AMD does a really good job at filling in that $550 space. But considering you have the 980 at $500 and the 980 Ti at $650, and this card sitting right in between that, I think it almost is a little bit confusing to a buyer who maybe is not loyal to any particular brand. Now, if you're an AMD fan, this is going to be definitely a no-brainer card for you. If you've got more to spend than, say, on a 390 or 390X, you want to go higher, but you don't want to drop $650 on a Fury X, this card is definitely an amazing card at that price point. But as you guys could see too, though, once you overclock some of the 980 stuff, NVIDIA fanboys are obviously going to be jumping for joy that the 980 classified overclocked was pretty much beating this card in just about every single test. But then again, the price points are very, very similar, and that's only if you're comfortable with overclocking the card. So I don't know if overclocking should necessarily be taken into the equation for a couple of reasons. One, not everyone's willing to do it. Two, it adds more heat and wear and tear on the card. And three, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a great overclocking card. Some cards, believe it or not, will start to crap on themselves, you know, only a few megahertz faster than stock. These manufacturers only guarantee the cards to run at their advertised speeds. Overclocking is not a guarantee, even on overclocking specific cards, believe it or not. But when we're talking about stock for stock, I think this card is a fantastic performing card. I do wish the coil whine was a little bit more in check. I don't I don't understand why we're having so much coil winding in these cards. I don't know if it has something to do with the architecture or the way it's... I don't know. I mean, we've been dealing with coil winding and computer parts for so many years. You'd think by now that there would have been advancements in the way these inductors are made so that they're not making all sorts of crazy noise. But unfortunately, this one does make noise. It's not as loud as the Fury X was. Maybe that's because we have more sitting on top of the card, kind of muffling it down, both with the back plate and with the massive cooler on the front. And then you put this thing inside of a case, it's not going to be as bad. I don't think it would be very, very noticeable. But it is something definitely worth mentioning because it is there. I'll be honest when I say that the HBM memory itself, it doesn't perform as good as I was hoping it would. I don't care who came to market with it first, AMD, NVIDIA, who had been developing it longer. I was kind of expecting some amazing breakthroughs when it came to memory, the way the memory is utilized on the GPU. Now, obviously, it's got a massive 4096-bit memory bus, but the memory speed itself is extremely slow compared to the well-evolved GDDR5. In fact, the GDDR5 now you're finding in graphics cards are exceeding 7,000 megahertz on RAM speed. So although you do have a longer path for the communication between the GPU and the memory, it's so fast, I almost feel like that might be negating some of the benefits of HBM. So maybe it's gonna take time. HBM, second generation HBM is already in, development and production technically for next year. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go with the evolution of HBM, and especially when these two companies start duking it out, AMD and NVIDIA, when it comes to HBM technology. But I don't think anybody can take away the fact that the card is performing very, very well. As you saw at 1440p, mid-70s at all times, on a single panel, on a single card, 1440p with MSAA on. It was a 2x MSAA test. The cards are just getting faster and faster, and I think Sapphire has done an amazing job at developing a graphics card that I myself would be proud to run in one of my gaming systems or put in a customer system if I was building a computer for someone and they said, what's the best AMD graphics card I could get? This card would definitely be on my short list because it looks great, it's quiet, it's got a fantastic warranty, and from a brand that definitely specializes in AMD graphics cards and takes a lot of pride in what they do. So if that's a company that you're looking for, you definitely should put Sapphire on your short list when it comes to GPU shopping. So there you go, guys. This has been Jayz2Cents. Thanks for checking out today's video. I do have 2 more Sapphire graphics cards I'm actually going to check out. If this thing's a little bit above your price range, in fact, they're actually right here. I have got the Sapphire Nitro R9 380, as well as the Sapphire R9 390 Nitro. Cool thing about these cards is some of the complaints Sapphire's gotten, and I even mentioned it earlier, is the fact that they don't want the orange, they don't want to see the colors. Well, the Nitro series cards are like completely blacked out. They look really, really good. So be looking for that soon. Like I said, it's like GPU Central around here. I think we're gonna have to change the name to JayzTwo GPUs, or JayzTwo dozen GPUs, something like that. All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next one. It's like, I swear, this thing's like a really good weapon because one, it weighs like 4 pounds at least. It's got a sharp edge right there. It's got a cutting edge, and it definitely would make a pretty good weapon. I mean, somebody could have killed somebody with this in Game of Thrones.